Assalamu alaikum. Back again, once again, dealing with some of the current issues that we're facing here in the U.S. So, everyone was waiting, right, for Tomi Lahren to finally address the issue of police brutality or police excessive force, right, after her, criticizing the football player Kaepernick for not standing for the U.S. national anthem due to America not standing up to its principles of justice and equality and fair treatment for all, right? So when this incident happened, the shooting of Terence Crutcher in Tulsa, Oklahoma, this is the man who was seen, walking with his hands up. He gets next to his car, his vehicle, and he is shot and killed. All right? So everyone was waiting for Miss Lahren to finally address it and say, okay, wow, she's finally going to address it. She's finally going to talk about, this clear and blatant misuse of force, right? Well, that's what we thought. Unfortunately, it turns out that, guess what, everybody? Well, you know what? Let's let her speak for herself.
It's time for final thoughts. And yes, I will talk about Terence Crutcher. This is a tragedy, no doubt about it. The footage doesn't look good. That's why there will be a full investigation by the Justice Department and Tulsa PD. That's how this thing works. If it wasn't justified, it will be prosecuted in that manner. Welcome to the United States, a nation where law, order, and justice are respected. In many other countries, that wouldn't happen. It would be tough luck, too bad. But here's what I still don't understand. Why is it that we wait for all of the facts and clear incidents of radical Islamic terror?
She didn't just say what I think she said. Wait a minute. So the problem is, so the problem with your final thoughts on the shooting of Terence Crutcher is radical Islam? How do we get from that to radical Islam? Right? She says that she admits that the shooting doesn't look good, but however, wait for the, basically she's telling us, it looks bad, but, wait for the full investigation. That's how it works, in the United States. Well, but in other countries, that wouldn't happen. Well, you know what? The thing is that in other countries, you're right. The corruption would be right there, blatant in your face. Unfortunately, what we do here in the United States is we are given the impression that an investigation to find the truth is going to take place, but then behind the scenes is where the corruption happens. So, the police officer may get charged, right? However, once everything is done, it's basically just a show. The officer is let off, not guilty, all charges dropped, fully acquitted, and they go home free while the person remains dead. This has happened already with, the incident where the officer shot the little girl, killed the little girl, right? This happened in the case of the officer the officer and officers who killed the couple that I did in my last video. He jumped on the hood of the car and he's blasting into he's standing like he's Rambo, standing on top of the car, blasting right into the window, point blank range. He gets to go home. So that's what happens. So yeah, an investigation is done. They'll put on a little show for the trial, but at the end, the officer is let go. Same thing with Freddie Gray. It was acknowledged that it was a homicide, but nobody's charged. So if it was a homicide, who killed him? All the officers are let go, and again, it's just a show. It's just a show. You see, it makes the people feel good. Oh, yeah, okay, we're getting justice. The officer's charged. That's why I always tell people now, don't get so excited because he was charged, because the officer got charged. No, be happy when the officer is charged and found guilty and goes to jail. Then you can celebrate. But see, a lot of people celebrate when the officer's charged, but that's just a charge. See? Same thing with George Zimmerman. He's not an officer, but same thing there. Everybody was upset because he was allowed to go home free until people started protesting and complaining about it. then they said, okay, we're going to bring him up on charges, right? So that made everybody feel good. Okay, he's going to be brought on charges. But then he was allowed to go home scot-free. Trayvon Martin is dead, but Zimmerman gets to go home free. So the trial, I'm getting to see, is just a show. It's just something to quell, and make people calm down. But in the end, they go free. Same thing with Rodney King. Rodney King. Let's go back to Rodney King. Same thing, right? We saw the cops beating him unmercifully, right? So everybody's upset. The riots take place. Well, actually, the riots took place after, right? The riots took place after the trial. But so they go to trial. You're like, okay, good. It's going to go to trial. Yeah, Tommy, that's how it works. It's just a show. The officers go to trial, but then they're proven. Then they're not proven. Excuse me, they're not proven. They're let off scot-free. They get to go home. We saw the video footage that they get to go home. All charges dropped. Claim that they're innocent, and so riots take place. Okay. So that's the difference between other countries here. At least in other countries, it's in your face, and they make it known, hey, look, nothing's going to get done. Cops didn't do anything wrong, even though everybody saw it, but hey, that's how it is. In America, we put on a show, and it's a farce, right? It's just a big farce. So perhaps it'd be better if they would just be honest in our face and say, look, you know what? Look, the cops, we're not going to charge you with anything. Like how it used to be, back blatant racism in our face. Hey, look, the cops didn't do nothing wrong. Don't worry about it. Then putting on this show and insulting us by allowing them to go free afterwards. See? So, as we saw, all of a sudden, instead of going, making her complete final thoughts about the whole issue, no, it changes all of a sudden. The issue is radical Islam. All of a sudden, instead of keeping on dealing with the issue of police brutality, the clear show of excessive force, no, radical Islam is the problem, everybody. Her final thoughts on Mr. Terence Crutcher getting shot is radical Islam. That's her final thought. Her final thoughts about it is radical Islam. We should have known that she wouldn't be able to just stick to the issue. We should have known. They never do that. Unfortunately, they never do that. When it comes to dealing with and addressing racist police brutality and racism, white racism, they just don't. A lot of these people just don't want to deal with it. They'll avoid it. They'll deflect. They'll bring up another issue. Whatever it takes not to address the issue. And Tomi did that. Okay. So, she goes on to say, why can't we blame Islam when it's clear it's the culprit in certain bombings, right?
Why is it we aren't supposed to mention Islam even when it's clear radical Islamic terror is the culprit?
Well, Tomi, it's interesting that she's upset that people don't want to rush to judgment when a bombing takes place, which is actually justifiable that you shouldn't rush to judgment, because people did that when it came to the Oklahoma City bombing, right? They wanted to rush to judgment that it was Muslims, turned out to be two white guys. We've seen incidents of whites being arrested for bomb plots, for wanting to commit terrorist acts. So that's why you shouldn't rush to judgment, Tomi. So she says, but it's funny how it's the reverse when it comes to police brutality, right? It's funny how for these people like Tomi, it's the reverse, right? They tell us, and she did in the video, they tell us, don't rush to judgment.
Why is it we can't seem to come up with a motive? Oh, but when a white officer uses force against a black suspect for any reason, automatically, without hesitation, it's about white racism. Follow that logic for me, please.
Let the investigation take place. Why does it always have to be, white racism when it comes to a white officer shooting an unarmed black man? Why does it always have to be that, right? But she says before the radical, but when it comes to a bombing, oh, let's wait, whatever. Well, Tom, it's the same thing in reverse. Why is it that when we have video footage of police brutality, of excessive force, person is not resisting, person is not posing a threat, and the person still gets shot and killed, why is it that you and your people, your first argument is, oh, well, wait, we don't know what happened. Even though we're watching the video, well, we don't know what happened before the video. Well, in the video, we saw that the moment in the video, the person wasn't threatening. The person didn't have a weapon. That's what we saw in the video. That at the moment of the killing, in the moments that the video footage is being shown, the person was not posing a threat. The person didn't have a weapon. So why was he killed? What does what happened before the video matter if in the moment of the video, the person is not doing anything that warrants them being shot and killed, Tomi? See? So when a bombing takes place, oh, you want to rush to judgment, it's radical Islam. Right? You want to rush to judgment. With no evidence, oh, yep, the Muslims did it. Right? But when we have video footage of people being choked to death, of people being shot point blank without any warning, when we have video footage of people with their hands up, non-threatening, when we have video footage of women being thrown around and brutalized, right? When we have footage, you suspected white racist bigots, then all of a sudden it's, well, you know, let's let the investigation take place. So when a bombing takes place, no evidence, no nothing, yet radical Islam. When we have video footage of police brutality, well, wait, you know, let's let the investigation take place. We don't know what happened before the video. See the double standard? See the double standard? And she asked the question, you know, when it comes to the radical Islam thing or whatever, you know, why can't we come up with a motive? Well, Tomi, first of all, you're wrong about that. The motives have already been determined plenty of times. Since 9/11, the motives have been, we've been made aware of the motives. And the motives are what? The motives have been constantly that our country, the United States, has invaded their nations, has bombed them, right? Has caused them to suffer, has caused them to die. These are the issues. Now, this doesn't justify them trying to bomb innocent people in return, but the motives are well known. Don't act like the motives that we don't know the motives. The motives have been made clear that the reason why they're doing these things is because of the United States and other Western nations' history of violating their nations, invading them, bombing them, propping up tyrannical dictators and monarchies that suppress their own people, mistreat their own people, the bombings, the sanctions, these are the reasons that they say, meddling in their affairs and etc. These are the reasons, these are the motives for what they do. Again, I'm repeating, this doesn't justify them bombing innocent people over here, but damn sure we know the motives. Damn sure they have a gripe, a legitimate concern that they've been bombed first. They've been invaded. They've been violated. So don't act like we don't know the motives. She says, but when white officer uses force on a black suspect, it's white racism. Why is that? Well, Tomi, the reason why that conclusion is come to is because there has been a history of white racist police brutality, Tomi. We can go back to the civil rights era. And did you know those same issues that we talk about right now happened then? Issues of unarmed black men being shot, being brutalized. Look, here's a picture of Malcolm X holding a newspaper from his time. As you know, Malcolm X lived in the 60s. Notice on the cover of the paper, what is the issue, Tomi? The issue is what? Unarmed black men being shot. So we've been arguing and complaining and protesting about this issue for decades, Tomi. Before you were born, in the 80s, these things were talked about, Tomi. In the 70s, in the 60s, before I was born, Tomi, these things were talked about. The issue has been around and been going on for decades, Tomi. This is not a new issue, people. For some of you youngsters out there, this issue is not new. Racist police brutality and shooting and killing of unarmed black men is not a new issue, young people like Tomi and others. Don't you get it twisted. This has been going on for decades. For decades, this has been the issue. It was the issue back during the time of the Panthers, which is why the Panthers formed. It was cause and effect. White racist police brutality, the cause, and the effect. The effect was white racist police brutality, which caused the Panthers to form. Right? Because they said, look, we're tired of the police brutality, and they formed a group to start policing the police. So it's not a new issue, Tomi. That's why whenever we see it happen, especially when we see it blatantly, such in these videos, the conclusion is that it's white racist police brutality. That's why, Tomi. I'm going to give you, at the end of this video, from the Civil Rights Museum here in Atlanta, several cases of white racist police brutality back in the civil rights era, which is the 60s, 50s and 60s. And you will see that the issue has been the same. Cops, sometimes they get charged, but in all the cases, they get let go. They get let go. It's been going on for decades. They get let go. Not guilty. All the time. Most of the time. It has to stop. It has to come to an end. And as far as the riots that are going on now, people keep talking about, it's funny, right? It's funny, there was a meme going around on the internet about how, you white racists, you don't like us to protest any kind of way, right? When we protest quietly and peacefully like Kaepernick, you're not happy with that. So they riot, you're not happy with that. What do you want us to do? I know what you want us to do. You wish we would just shut up. You wish we wouldn't say anything to speak out against your racism and mistreatment that has been going on against us for centuries and decades. That's what I think you rather. You'd rather we just keep our mouth shut. Just be good, quiet victims. Just be good, quiet victims. Don't say a word. Just shut up and take the beatings. Take the abuse. Take the mistreatment. Keep your mouth shut. Don't say anything. Don't speak out against it. Because you're not happy no matter what we do. No matter what we do, you're not happy. You say, oh, the riots, that's not the way to go about it. So we do it peacefully. We say, okay, we're going to be peaceful. We're not going to salute your flag. We're not going to stand for your anthem until we see that justice is done for all. Until America stands up to its principles. You don't like that. You don't like that. Right? You don't like that. Well, how do you want us to protest then? We do it quietly and peacefully. You don't like that. They do the riots and they're upset. They riot. You don't like that. So I think you really just want us to go away, don't you? You really just prefer us to just go away. That's what I think you want. And lastly, she hypocritically talks about the comments on her Twitter feed in regards to the police brutality and some of the cops who are guilty of these murders.
Look at my Twitter feed. Search the hashtag Betty Shelby, the female officer involved. What you see and read is disgusting. What the hell does that solve?
She's such a hypocrite because if you look at her feed, you have white racist bigots who support her, calling black people all kind of disparaging names. Nigga this, nigga that. Calling Kaepernick nigga this, nigga that. Niggas need to shit, whatever, right? But she's appalled by black people upset about the police brutality and speaking out in anger. Meanwhile, her own supporters are speaking racist and disparaging comments about blacks. But, that's okay, right, Tomi? So, we ended with that. That it's interesting how, again, her final thoughts on the Terence Crutcher shooting is radical Islam. Again, everybody, her final thoughts on the Terence Crutcher shooting is radical Islam is the issue. Amazing and sad. So as I said, as the video goes out, I want you to take a listen to some of these incidents that had taken place decades ago, which still are the same issues that black people are facing and talking about and upset about to this day and time. Take care.
Delano Herman Middleton died February 8, 1968. Middleton was one of 3 men shot and killed by police who fired on student demonstrators at the South Carolina State College campus. 9 state troopers were charged with imposing summary punishment without due process of law, but all 9 were acquitted. Samuel Lemon Young Jr. died January 3, 1966, a student civil rights activist. Young was fatally shot by a white gas station owner following an argument over segregated restrooms. Marvin Segrist was indicted for Young's murder in November 1966, but was cleared of all charges by the jury. Just like Trayvon, nothing's changed much. This one is for all of you who claim that, soldiers fought for our freedom and fought for your right to do this and fought for your right to do that. This one totally destroys that claim. Corporal Roman Ducksworth Jr. died April 9, 1962. A military police officer stationed in Maryland, Ducksworth was on leave visiting his sick wife when he was ordered off a bus by a police officer and shot dead. The police officer may have mistaken Ducksworth for a freedom rider who was testing bus desegregation laws. The police officer, William Kelly, claimed he was acting in self-defense. Sounds familiar, right? Kelly was never indicted by a grand jury. Again, this has been going on for decades, people. It's not new. Again, another proof that the U.S. military has not fought for the freedom and rights of black people, as here's another black soldier murdered and killed. So of course he wasn't fighting for his rights because he had none, as you can see. Lieutenant Colonel Lemuel Penn died July 11, 1964. A Washington, D.C. educator. He was driving home from U.S. Army Reserves training when he was shot and killed by Klansmen in a passing car. Cecil Myers and Joseph Howard Sims were charged with first-degree murder after a federal investigation. Both men were acquitted by a jury on September 4th, 1968. They keep getting away with murder. Herbert Lee died September 25th, 1961. Lee worked with civil rights leader Bob Moses to help register black voters. He was shot and killed by Mississippi State legislator E. H. Hurst, who claimed self-defense, again, that's their typical claim, and was never arrested. Several witnesses to the murder lied to the police, fearing for their lives. One, Lewis Allen, an African American, was later also killed. The coroner ruled that Hurst shot Lee in self-defense. Right? Nothing new. I'll give you one more. Willie Brewster died July 18, 1965. On his way home from work, Brewster was shot and killed by white men. The men belonged to the National States Rights Party, a violent neo-Nazi group whose members had been involved in church bombings and the murders of African Americans. Herbert Damon Strange was arrested and convicted of manslaughter by an all-white jury in 1968. There were 2 other suspects, but Johnny Ira DeFries was acquitted, and the prosecution dropped charges against Clarence Lewis Blevins before the case went to trial. So we have been being killed by police officers, by whites, claiming self-defense. It's the same thing that has been going on to this very day. And this is why people say Black Lives Matter, because American history has shown us that they do not matter.